You thought you had stepped back far enough. Your assault group is no longer crawling through the last shattered tree line near the contact line. You are 60 kilometers back, then 90, then maybe 120, parked near a fuel point or a road junction that used to count as rear area. On paper, that should be outside the danger zone for small FPVs. In reality, the danger zone moved. First, the drones watch. Then they map your route. Then they strip away your comms, mark your assembly point, and start hitting the trucks, the repeaters, the fuel, the men, one layer at a time. Russia thought it could step back from the 10-kilometer kill zone. What Ukraine built by 2026 is something much worse. An Azov-style drone wall that no longer ends at the trench line. This is not just about one brigade, one sector, or one dramatic telegram clip. It is about a doctrinal shift that started with very local ideas in units like Azov's unmanned battalions and then scaled outward into a national way of war. By March 2026, Ukrainian officials were openly describing unmanned systems as the backbone of asymmetric defense, saying the strike zone they had already built reached roughly 20 kilometers deep, and that the next goal was to push that out to 100 kilometers into Russian operational depth. At the same time, recent analysis of public strike data found Ukrainian attacks regularly landing in a 50 to 250 kilometer band from the front, while other reporting described the effective front-adjacent strike envelope expanding to around 150 kilometers in some sectors. To understand why that matters, go back to the earlier version of the wall. In 2025, Azov's unmanned systems commander described trying to create a 1 to 2 kilometer buffer between Russian lines and Ukrainian infantry. The logic was brutally simple. Drones were not there as a nice extra. They were there to stop the enemy from ever reaching the riflemen in the first place. Recon drones searched for infiltrators. FPVs hit logistics. Communications got stripped away. Infantry was supposed to enter only when necessary, not as the first layer of contact, but as the last layer of insurance. Even then, Azov's own commander said the battalion was increasingly focused on saving infantry lives and preventing infantry from entering battle at all. That small wall did not stay small because the battlefield itself changed. Reuters reported in July 2025 that Ukrainian soldiers were already describing a drone-infested corridor of about 10 kilometers on each side of the line of contact as the kill zone. In that band, any large vehicle became an obvious target, and Russian forces were forced to shift toward tiny assault groups on foot, motorcycles, or quad bikes, because old-style armored thrusts were simply too visible and too vulnerable. By February 2026, Reuters was describing an expanding kill zone along the entire 1,200-kilometer front, with virtually any movement, from troop rotations to medical evacuations to tank assaults, becoming increasingly deadly. Then came the bigger conceptual leap. Valery Zaluzhny said in February 2026 that the front had become a 30-kilometer deep robotic kill zone, with the battlefield now completely transparent. That phrase matters. Completely transparent. Because once constant surveillance, relay links, automated strike systems, and cheap one-way drones make the battlefield transparent, the old map symbols lie to you. A trench is not just a trench. A tree line is not concealment. A rear command point is not a rear command point. Zaluzhny's warning was that the old safe rear area is dying, and that troop exposure has to be minimized because machines can now do more of the dangerous work. And this is where Azov's role becomes bigger than the unit itself. The surprise was never that Ukraine had drones. Everybody expected drones. The surprise was that some Ukrainian units started reorganizing combat around them. Drones became the first handshake with the enemy. They became the picket line, the ambush screen, the route reconnaissance, the artillery spotter, the repeater, the strike package, and increasingly, the thing that determines whether infantry even moves. Defense News reported in February that in the 12th Azov Brigade sector, there were areas with absolutely no Ukrainian infantry, with defense maintained largely by UAV surveillance, artillery, and minefields. That is not a gadget story. That is doctrine. Robots forward, humans back. You can see the operational pressure this puts on Russian tactics around places like Toretsk and Pokrovsk. Azov's commander told the war zone that Russian forces had moved away from the old meat grinder-style assaults and towards small group infiltration tactics, forcing Ukrainian drone crews to spend more time identifying men, tracing movement, and finding vulnerable patterns in how those groups slip between positions. Reuters separately reported that Russian troops around Pokrovsk had been advancing for months in small infantry groups, with vehicles used sparingly because the skies were too dangerous. When Russia did try a larger mechanized assault inside Pokrovsk in December 2025, Ukrainian forces said it was unusually large, precisely because the normal pattern had become so fragmented. So imagine you are a Russian platoon commander near Pokrovsk, not at the zero line, behind it. You are told the dangerous strip is near the trenches, maybe 10 kilometers, maybe a bit more. So you stage farther back. You split into smaller groups. You hide vehicles under trees. You use motorcycles, civilian vans, farm tracks, bad weather, dusk. But the Ukrainians are not just hunting vehicles now. They are hunting signatures. A cluster of men where there should be none. A repeater antenna. A fuel truck that arrives too early. A pause at a crossroads. A burst of radioactivity. A generator warming up near a tree line. The old front punished movement. The new front punishes behavior. Now imagine you are an Azov drone operator. You're not charging across open ground with a rifle unless something has gone badly wrong. You are in a shelter, headset on, one eye on the feed, another on a secure voice net, waiting for the lift-off order. Your drone has already been modified in a workshop because off-the-shelf is not good enough anymore. Your Recon bird may also act as a repeater. Your job is not only to strike, it is to clean the air picture, expose the route, pin down the enemy's logistics, and keep your own infantry from having to fight a fair fight. That is one of the deepest changes in this war. Ukraine is not trying to meet Russian mass head-on. It is trying to make Russian mass arrive broken, late, blind, and already bleeding. That wall now extends in layers. Step 1 is the brutal zone from 0 to roughly 10 kilometers. This is the classic FPV belt. Quadcopters, bombers, recon drones, interceptors, mines, and increasingly ground robots make open movement almost suicidal. Reuters described this band as the kill zone in 2025, and by early 2026, drone hunting teams were saying drones were in the air all the time, sometimes dozens hitting a single target within an hour. In this layer, the mission is immediate denial. No approach march, no clean resupply, no confident rotation, no armor dash through open fields. Step 2 runs roughly 10 to 30 kilometers deep. This is Zaluzhny's robotic belt. The systems change here. You start seeing more fixed-wing ISR, relay platforms, and strike drones that can range farther, carry a bit more, and loiter longer. The targets also change. Instead of just trench line movement, you are now hitting artillery positions, ammunition dumps, drone launch sites, EW nodes, comms links, local headquarters, and assembly areas. Azov's own commander said his battalion was operating out to roughly 25 kilometers and often used recon drones as repeaters for strike systems, while Zaluzhny described a 30-kilometer band where logistics hubs and command posts were already vulnerable. Step 3 is where the wall becomes operational rather than tactical. From about 30 to 100 kilometers, Ukraine is increasingly using medium-range drones, not just to look, but to destroy. This is now official policy, not just battlefield improvisation. Ukraine's defense ministry said in January that unmanned technologies had already enabled a strike zone up to 20 kilometers deep, and that the next objective was to extend it to 100 kilometers by striking Russian targets in operational depth. That same message included the most important production number of the year, more than 7 million drones planned for 2026. Scale is the point. A 100-kilometer strike zone is not built by boutique innovation. It is built by industrialized repetition. And then there is step 4, the 100 to 150-kilometer band. This is the new wall. Not a solid curtain, not perfect coverage, but a recurring strike envelope where Russian depots, fuel points, refineries, rail nodes, air defense positions, aviation support sites, and transport hubs are increasingly exposed. Analysis published this week found Ukrainian drones carrying out major attacks in a 50 to 250-kilometer range envelope from the front, with the pace of attacks in early 2026 roughly doubling compared with late 2025. Other recent reporting described Ukrainian drone strike range near the front expanding from around 50 kilometers to around 150 kilometers in recent weeks. Reuters has also reported Ukrainian deep strike tactics hitting hundreds of targets and causing damage Ukrainian officials value in the billions, much of it in Russia's oil sector. That matters psychologically as much as physically. Imagine you are 80 kilometers behind the line. You are not a trench soldier. You are transport, signals, maintenance, maybe air defense, maybe fuel, maybe the crew that thought it had been rotated into relative safety. There is no artillery sound here, no direct line of sight to the battlefield. Then someone hears the buzz. Maybe not even overhead at first, maybe just the call on the radio that another road junction is gone, another depot is burning, another repeater tower is out. The terrifying part is not just the hit, it is the realization that the front has followed you home. This is the part NATO did not fully expect. Again, not drones themselves, the structure, the layering, the speed of adaptation, the fact that a Recon drone can also be a relay, the fact that a mothership drone can extend the range of FPVs. Reuters reported in 2025 that Ukraine was using a mothership drone capable of carrying 2 FPVs up to 70 kilometers before releasing them and acting as a communications relay. The fact that operators are trained as core combat troops rather than support staff. The fact that kill chains are increasingly automated after human target selection. The fact that some units are shifting logistics onto ground robots and deliberately lowering human density at the front. Even Germany's army chief said this month that the Ukrainian military is the only one in the world with current frontline experience against Russia. And Berlin is now bringing in Ukrainian trainers to teach artillery, engineering, drones, armored operations, and command and control. That is also why Ukrainian commanders have been blunt about Western unreadiness. Reuters reported last year that the head of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces warned that not a single NATO army was ready for a modern cascade of drones. By March 2026, that warning looks less like rhetoric and more like a description of a world catching up too slowly. Britain and Ukraine this week agreed to deepen cooperation on drones and AI, with NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte joining the talks, while Ukrainian experts are now being requested by partners well beyond Europe, because Kyiv has become a world leader in drone and anti-drone technologies. In other words, the classroom has flipped. NATO is no longer just teaching Ukraine. Ukraine is teaching NATO what the next battlefield feels like. And all of this lands in a very specific 2026 context. Russia is still preparing for heavier spring-summer fighting, according to Ukrainian officials and commanders, but it is preparing inside an environment where a 30-kilometer robotic kill zone is becoming normal rather than exceptional. At the same time, Ukraine wants to build more than 7 million drones this year, while European Commissioner Andrius Kubilius has warned Russia could field between 7 and 9 million drones in 2026. That is not just a race for better platforms, it is a race for density. Whoever can keep more eyes and more cheap precision in the air, for longer, across more depth, gets to decide whether the enemy can still mass. And that is the strategic leverage. If Ukraine, and units shaped by Azov-style Doctrine, can make this 100 to 150 kilometer wall dense, routine, and coordinated with artillery, EW, mining, and deep strike commands, then Russia's biggest advantages start to rot before they reach the line. Massed infantry becomes visible too early. Logistics becomes expensive. Artillery has to move more often. Command posts have to hide deeper. Fuel and ammunition stocks have to fragment. Reinforcement routes become predictable kill chains. The land bridge does not die in one dramatic explosion. It dies when every road into it becomes a question mark. So the real story here is not that Azov built a clever local drone screen and everyone clapped. The real story is that Ukraine used local innovation to prototype a different way of defending a country with fewer people against an invader with more of almost everything. Start with a 1 to 2 kilometer buffer, expand it into a 10 kilometer kill zone, merge it into a 30 kilometer robotic belt. Then industrialize the logic until the rear itself stops being rear. By March 21st, 2026, that process is no longer theory. It is visible in official plans, frontline reporting, Western military retraining, and the widening map of strikes behind Russian lines. And that may be the biggest warning of all. This is not just an Azov story. It is not even just a Ukraine story anymore. It is the template for how medium-sized armies survive against larger invaders in the age of cheap autonomy. Not by matching mass with mass, but by turning airspace, data, and time into a weapon. The wall is invisible. It hums instead of roars. But once it thickens enough, armies do not break against it at the trench line. They start breaking long before they ever get there.